Ever since Luka Doncic stepped onto an NBA court, we have known that he was going to be special, and this season he is really proving it. He just broke the record set by Russell Westbrook by having 6 30-point triple-doubles in a row. Is there any way to stop him? Luka Doncic is averaging his career high in almost every single statistical category, and he's not even third in MVP voting after breaking that record by having 6 30-point triple-doubles in a row. I don't think there's any way to stop him, but let's see how good he really has. Before this video starts, the NBA playoffs are starting very soon. With teams making their final pushes before the postseason, make sure you're there to see your favorite team make their playoff push. Is your team already eliminated? Don't worry, plenty of artists are on tour right now, and the MLB season is starting soon. Whatever your choice of entertainment is, SeatGeek has tickets for you, and if you use our code NEXTMANUP, you can get $20 off your first purchase of $20 or more. A pretty good deal in my opinion. Luka Doncic has been on a tear this season. He is leading the NBA in scoring and has a commendable lead in PRAs with 53.5, with Giannis in second at 48.4. Luka just seems to get better every season despite him being an MVP candidate every season since his rookie season, making the first team every season except his rookie year. How has Luka got so much better every season though? This season he is averaging a career high in field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, free throw percentage, assists, steals, blocks, and points. The Mavs have continued to struggle despite Luka carrying the team as they're currently in the 8th seed and would have to fight in the play-in tournament in a tough West. The truth is, they haven't built around Luka very well. They tried the Porzingis trade, that was a bust. The Kyrie trade has seemed to help, but not solve the big man problem. The bright spot in the front court so far has been rookie Dereck Lively, who has been fantastic defensively, but hasn't really figured it out all offensively yet. They also don't have the same elite depth as other teams in the West. Even though they are 10th in the league in bench scoring, they have come together pretty nice throughout the season, but they were projected to be around a mid team off the bench going into this season, but they have come together a little bit, even though I don't think they do have the elite depth of other teams in the West that we've seen, like the Lakers, for example. The Mavs are currently in the 8th seed, and that's kind of where I expected them to be at this point. Looking at the starting lineup and the bench, Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, obviously proven players, Luka being able to carry this team and Kyrie being able to step up when he needs to. Besides that though, guys like Derrick Jones Jr., PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, Maxi Kleber, Tim Hardaway Jr. has been fantastic off of the bench, being the 3rd leading scorer this season for the Mavs, but even guys like that who I just mentioned, they're decent, they're good players, but when we look at other teams in the West that are competing, like the Suns, you have KD, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal all in your starting lineup, and that's going to be hard to compete against, especially come playoff time, and the Suns aren't even doing that great this season overall. They've been up and down, there has been some injuries, but even with 3 megastars like that on their team, they haven't even been that great. When we look at teams like the Nuggets, you have Jamal Murray, you have Jokic, and then you have other guys like MPJ who have been able to step up too, coming into that 3rd player role. On the Mavs, I just don't see, you don't even have to have a 3rd star on this team necessarily, but guys like Derrick Jones, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, Maxi Kleber, Dereck Lively, they're all good, but I just don't really see, you don't necessarily have to have that star potential, like I said, like Michael Porter Jr., but I don't even really see a great upside for any of those players, maybe outside of a guy on this list like Dereck Lively, just because he's still so young and he's proven that he's been good, but I don't know how good he can be offensively. Now back to the reason why Luka's been so good, which is, like I just mentioned, the rest of this team around him. Kyrie Irving is a good player. We all know that. He's one of the most crafty players in NBA history, honestly. Some of the best handles that we've ever seen, but Kyrie himself isn't taking too much away from Luka. I mean, Luka's still putting up almost 35 points per game. Kyrie's putting up 25.5, so both of these guys can put up as many points as they need to each, and that's still going to account for usually more than half of the points on this team, just because, like I said, there's not very many other guys on this team that really stand out to me. There are guys that can end up stepping up. I like guys like Josh Green, but at the end of the day, a lot of these guys may not be great come day to day. Like, there's a lot of players on other teams that we can look at in the West, like I mentioned before, like the Suns, who can step up any day, the Nuggets. That's what makes these teams elite. Even teams this year like the Timberwolves, you have 3 guys who can step up with Anthony Edwards, with Rudy Gobert, with Karl Anthony Towns. And this Dallas team just doesn't have those guys, which kind of leads Luka to be able to put up these numbers. He's almost putting up a triple-double this season with 34.7 points, 9 rebounds, and 9.8 assists. I mean, he's just on another planet right now. And he isn't shooting that great either. I mean, he's shooting about 50% from the field, which isn't terrible. It's pretty good, but it's not as good as we could see if he had other guys around him. But he is putting up 35 points, so his overall field goal percentage is probably going to go down. But if he had better opportunities and maybe had to shoot less, maybe had to do less, then his numbers would go down if he had a better team around him. But they would be able to compete more, like we've seen from Jokic. His numbers have gone down a little bit every season, but they won a championship, so I think he will take a championship over his stats any day of the year. And I think if you ask Luka, he would say the same thing. So how can Luka become a better player than this? I mean, he's already on another level right now, statistically, going to go down as one of the best seasons that we've ever seen, which it seems like every single year we have players having some of the best seasons that we've ever seen. Last year, in the past 2 years, Joel Embiid leading the league in scoring as a center, Nikola Jokic putting up nearly a triple-double the past 2 years and going on to win 2 MVPs in the past 3 years, Giannis being a offensive and defensive weapon, winning MVP and Defensive Player of the Year 1 year. I mean, all these players just making history as the game advances. So how can Luka become better? I think statistically, I don't know how much better you're going to get than 35, 9, and 10. But like I said, if they build a better team around him and he can shoot less, he doesn't need to do as much. He doesn't need to get as many rebounds. He can still get as many assists as he needs. But if his stats do go down, I don't think he'll be that worried about it, just because they'll be competing once again. And they are competing in the West. They are an 8th seed. They're in a spot where if they get into the playoffs and Luka can go out there and puts up 40 points per game, they're going to compete. But if you really want to get a better team around him, I think you're going to have to either get rid of Kyrie, which I know he's the second best player on the team, but you may have to go out and get a younger star that you can build this whole team around. And I don't know how good it's going to be having Luka and Kyrie next to each other for the foreseeable future, considering both of them, I mean, they're both good guards, but it just seems like Luka would fit better with a center that's at an elite level. And I know they tried to do that with Porzingis and it didn't work, but I mean, obviously it doesn't seem that feasible that they're going to get Luka and a guy like Wemby on the same team, but obviously that would be insane. Even any other guy in the power forward or center area that would be able to fit both of these guys together. It just seems like they need to build this team a little better around that. Maybe Luka decides to leave and go somewhere else to play with a player of that caliber too. I think the other way they could go around building this team is maybe you keep Kyrie Irving and you keep Luka for the foreseeable future. Both of them kind of locked in for a little while now. So I think that you have to go out and build the team around those two players and build the depth up. You don't necessarily have to go out and get a third star if you don't want to spend that much money. You can go out there and compete with other guys and hope a star emerges. A team like the Nuggets, which we've seen, they had Jamal Murray, they had Jokic, but they built the team around that so well that a guy like Michael Porter Jr. stepped up into that role. Another perfect example is the Lakers. You have LeBron and you have Anthony Davis. They tried so long to step up and get that third player, and it didn't work out for a little while, but then a guy like Austin Reeves comes in and fits into that third player role pretty well, and now, as of this recording, as of very recently, D'Angelo Russell stepping up into that role as well. I think you need to go out and build the role players and build the bench, and then have Luka go out and put 35 points up per game. Maybe he doesn't need to put that much up. Maybe he's just at 30 points per game, and then Kyrie puts up 25. But then you have other guys fill in these roles. You need shooters to go out there and get it done, and then this team can start to compete once again. I think with Luka Doncic, you can't go out there and have him put up 6 30-point triple-doubles a game and barely scrape by and get these wins. I mean, coming out They did just dominate Detroit, but out of those 6 games, I mean, in the past 5 games, he's lost 3 of them, even though he's putting up 30-point triple-doubles. A near 40, 10, and 11 game against Indiana, he loses. 38, 11, and 10 against Philly, he loses. 37, 12, and 11 against Boston, and they lose by 28. They need someone to step up, or they're going to need to go build the rest of this team with a bunch of role players, which I know it doesn't sound great, but when you have 2 star-level players on your team, sometimes you need to fill in the holes instead of going out and getting a 3rd star, just because that's just how basketball works at the end of the day. If you go out and get 3 stars, most of the time, like we've seen in the past, it doesn't work with Brooklyn. I mean, even this year with the Suns, they have high expectations. We'll have to see what they do in the playoffs, but all those injuries too, obviously derailing them. But at the end of the day, it just seems like 3 stars doesn't work in the NBA anymore because there's so much that goes into that. You want to build off of your 2 stars. Luka Doncic has the skill set to become one of the best players ever. You don't want to ruin that. You want to go out and at least get them competing every single season and get that guy at least in a spot to win a championship, because if you put him on a final stage, I think he's going to go out there and perform. If you made it to this part of the video, make sure to go down and like and subscribe if you haven't already. I think Luka Doncic is one of the best talents that we've seen in NBA history, so it's almost sad to see him rotting on the Mavs at this point. I think he should be on a team competing for a championship every year with this type of talent. So let me know down below what you think will happen with Luka for the rest of his career at this point. Do you think he'll leave the Mavs, or do you think he'll stay? And I'll see you in the next one.